Welcome back, everyone. And for today's podcast, we want to discuss more about Pokemon, why Pokemon has remained so popular for so many years, and we want to discuss in detail exactly the why. What made Pokemon so attractive, and what business owners can learn from it.
Okay, before we start discussing about Pokemon, I want to understand I want to understand why have you decided to choose on the topic of Pokemon for this episode? Let me understand why have you decided to discuss about this?
We decided on the topic of Pokemon because we think that Pokemon is a very popular business and the business has managed to remain relevant for many years. And even for now, right, if you look at it, there are many adults who are actually still interested in Pokemon through their purchase, buying, and selling of these Pokemon cards. And it is actually a topic that can connect adults with young students across all age group. And this is why we're excited to talk briefly about this topic of Pokemon.
All right. Anyway, I think that this is a very good topic to talk about because ultimately, Pokemon is a business enterprise, and the way they have managed to stay relevant over so many years is indeed a very important topic to talk about. And we should actually we as any business, right? Any business should actually learn from Pokemon Enterprise because they have in fact put in a wide and they didn't start out really that well, but they managed to put in to implement a wide variety of strategies that managed to help them to continuously gather customers over the years and there's an effect to it because over the years, right, those young students who used to love Pokemon, trading in Pokemon cards and playing the Pokemon games, they have become adults, some older adults. And you can see like older adults in the the younger Gen X onwards, the younger Gen X and below. So you would say that they are sufficiently like in their early late 40s to about early 50s, and you can see that there's this segment of customer people who are still interested in trading Pokemon. And it's very interesting because you also have students that are 18 years old, that is around junior college in Singapore, who are still interested in trading Pokemon cards. Then, if you were to go to the younger segment, right, that is, you go to the primary school level, and still you have people at that age group, primary school level, who are still interested in trading Pokemon cards. So you can safely assume that Pokemon remains very attractive to people across a wide range of age group. And this is actually a very difficult task to achieve. It's a very difficult outcome to achieve, and yet the Pokemon Enterprise managed to do this, and this is really worth discussing about.
These Pokemon cards, they are not just appealing to different age group. On top of that, they are also very valuable. So you have some Pokemon trading cards that are trading at in beyond price at hundreds of over US dollars. And this is what the NBA has managed to achieve for their trading cards, hundreds over dollars for one card. But this is just a trading card itself. So what the Pokemon has done is that they managed to have their trading card to have such high valuation with just cartoon and animation. Or on the other hand, for NBA, they need to achieve it with very, very high capital investment, like recruiting all the NBA players and so on. So what they're done It's very interesting.
I'm very interested in the Pokemon Enterprises business model because what they have done is that they have actually constructed a single character, a trainer, that owns a particular Pokemon, and this trainer goes around the world challenging other trainers' Pokemon, and in the process, he discovers other Pokemon. Okay, so this is one way he discovers Pokemon, and this is one way the Pokemon franchise introduces the fan to new Pokemon. And the other way is this trainer goes around the world and visits very magical places like forests, mountains, and so on. And he, in the process, also discovers special Pokemon in those magical area. And that is another channel whereby the Pokemon Enterprises introduces new Pokemon characters to the fan. So there's an endless journey to Pokemon discovery. There's an endless journey to introducing product in a storytelling mode to its fans. And I find that it's very interesting because first of all, they have this storyline that is very appealing, that really appeals to, and is very colorful as well, and it appeals to people of all ages. And they go on this discovery mode that allows them to churn endless stories about battling and discovering new Pokemon. So this animation franchise, so it has many sub franchises. It has the animation that tells you the story of the entire Pokemon universe. Then they have the introduction. They have the toys, the hardware toys, like plastic toys and soft toys and so on. Then on top of that, you have the trading cards. Then besides all these, you also have software in like like this video games, computer games, mobile games, and so on. So they are literally dominating. I would say they are literally dominating all aspects of your senses, all your five senses. It really appeals to all your five senses because you can hear about them, you hear about the storyline, you watch their story, you can feel them through their plushies, you can feel them through the toys, and there are so many ways that you can go about interacting with their product. But the most important thing is they leverage very strongly on this concept of storytelling, and it is this storytelling that continuously enable them to introduce new products and continuously allow them the platform to innovate and continuously allow them for their fans to invigorate their fans' interest in the Pokemon franchise.
Can you share more about Can you share more about why this Pokemon product appeals to different age group? Like what you said earlier, that it appeals to people in the late Gen Y and people in the early Gen X. So this product is actually appealing to the older audience, but at the same time, it also appeal to people who are studying in the primary school level. Range. The age range is about 7 to 12 years old. So how does this dynamic work? Like how do they appeal to so many people? Can you explain a little bit about this, about your thinking about this thing?
The most important concept centers on Pokemon's ability to continuously generate a story that seeks to draw fans in. All right. So that itself, and how they draw fans in the initial phase is through the introduction of very colorful animals, colorful Pokemon, and these Pokemons are very interesting in a way that they have special abilities. So they're like animals, but supercharged with special abilities. So who doesn't like a lot of people are drawn to like special abilities, right? They're not drawn to the conventional normal things. They're drawn to special things. And this is what the Pokemons have. And some of these Pokemons, they are actually derivation of legendary characters from real myths that are collected from all over the world. For example, unicorns and so on. You don't have unicorns in real life, but they introduce unicorn in their Pokemon franchise, bringing the myth to life in their franchise. And on top of that, these unicorns, they have special abilities. And the best part is that the trainers, the human, they can make use of this unicorn, this special Pokemon, indirectly to use their special ability to attack someone else to the benefit of himself, or to benefit others and so on. So it's a very interesting concept that you are able to control a special ability through an animal, through a Pokemon that is introduced to you in this franchise. Then of course, what they are doing is that they are using colors, they are using cute animals, they are using special abilities, they're using an ownership dynamic over these animals to attract people into the Pokemon universe. So what this does is that it certainly it certainly appeals to younger people, kids, like what you say, primary school, 7 years old to 12 years old. And and what it does is that it draws the young people in at a very early age. Then after that, when you reach around 12 years old, I presume that people are no longer that that easily interested in things that are colorful, in things that are cute, but to a certain extent. But there are some people who are still drawn to all these type of things, but you are less attracted to all these things, colors, special ability, because you get to learn of the real world. There are many other things that are more interesting to you as a consumer, simply than just colors and some stories. So, but when you go around this age, you are attracted by other things. You want at beyond 12 years old, you are seeking something that is more interesting than what you were previously exposed to. So at this age, most people are attracted to the Pokemon franchise through the video games. And they have a variety of video games that is actually very fun. So you have the most of them centers on fighting each other. And then you have the technical system of upgrading their abilities as you fight more. So, for example, let's say if you fight, I use a particular Pokemon and I fight against another Pokemon in which I win this game. Then after that, I gain more experience points, and I can use these experience points to upgrade my skills. In turn, making the Pokemon even more powerful than before. So this journey of upgrading itself is a form of attraction. All right. Then on top of this type of fighting game, then you have uh one version of their game that is very similar to World of Warcraft, and very similar to Dota, if you know about all these games. So basically what you do is you choose a particular Pokemon, and then you get divided into two groups. So in each group, each player is in charge of controlling one single Pokemon. And these two groups will pit against each other in the game. And in the attempt of fighting, and what they're doing is that they're fighting to gain control of each other's territory. So it's a very fun game. It's very popular. It's online. It's on an online setting where the players can really get together, play against each other with their favorite Pokemon, and in the process, they can also upgrade their Pokemon. And the important thing about this is that it builds teamwork. It lets you feel that you are part of a larger community, not just by yourself and your Pokemon, but with other trainers and their Pokemon as well. So it's a very attractive and a very fun platform to be in, to be part of a community where everybody is fighting in a friendly manner and everybody is trying to upgrade themselves as much as possible. So at that level, you have that really appealing channel to draw more fans in from that particular age group. And when I say that particular age group, I mean that people who are aged from 12 onwards to maybe 20 plus. Please, now even people who are in their 30s, they're still playing video games, all right? So you literally have this entire age group whereby people from 12 years old onwards all the way to 30 plus playing all these games, and they're still drawn and attracted, remains attracted to this Pokemon franchise. Then beyond the 30s, so you have people who are like 30s and all the way up to 50s. And to be honest, I even see that people in their 60s and 70s playing a game called Pokemon Go. So what Pokemon Go comprises is basically a game that allows you to use your handphone, go around the neighborhood to catch Pokemon, right? With your Pokemon balls, and it allows you to interact virtually or you through an augmented reality of your world. And so you have people who are in their 60s and 70s walking around the neighborhood trying to catch Pokemon. And very interestingly, at certain times of the day, you have people gathering at certain spots. In fact, people in their 60s gathering at certain spots trying to catch a certain Pokemon that will only appear at that time and at that venue. It's very interesting to note all this kind of trend. So the video games, okay, so I stated that you have people up to 30 still playing the video games, but in actual fact, it stretches all the way to 70s. Then, on top of all this, right, importantly, you have that trading card aspect to it. And these trading cards are not simply trading at a valuation of 10 cents, 20 cents, 30 cents. Some of them go up to thousands of dollars. You know, rare Pokemon cards go up to thousands of dollars, hundreds of dollars. And what it does is that it makes it a viable career option to just simply trade in Pokemon cards. So it really makes sense for people of all ages to collect Pokemon cards and really literally trade them for a living. And that is why now you still have people collecting Pokemon cards and trading them at a very high valuation. They could have bought these Pokemon cards for like $5 to $7 per pack, and each pack would consist 7 or 8 cards, and that means that each card could mean that at the fresh at the primary market you could be buying these cards at $1 per card. But eventually, if you chance upon a rare card, you could be trading this card at hundreds or maybe even thousands of dollars. And that is many times over the original price of a Pokemon card. And trading Pokemon cards is actually, in a way, quite interesting. It's actually more interesting. Some people might think that it's even more interesting than trading stocks, because you have the different characters, you have the storyline, you have the community of fans behind a certain character. So it's really, I would say it's really a very keen development of an ecosystem that supports all these forms of all these channels to attract the different fan base.
Yeah, so I know this also, and I think that I like to compare to NBA, because in NBA it had trading cards as well, but in NBA they need to do so many things. They need to build the stadium, and they need to create a lot of events. They need to recruit the basketball player from a very young age. So they have to actually send scouts to the colleges to look at all these players, to sign them up, then recruit these players into NBA at a very high price. Then they can do so many things, in order to generate all these trading cards. So So when I think about this and I compare this to Pokemon, what Pokemon is doing is that they are doing the same thing but at a much lower cost. MK also generate video games, okay? And that, but Pokemon is doing this at a much lower cost. They're doing this through cartoons, animation, and it can be done by computer, it can be done by drawing, something like that.
Pokemon has managed to differentiate its model from the other traditional Japanese animation manga in the sense that they allow the storyline to introduce different Pokemons throughout the entire story. And the story keeps on evolving, but you can see that there is a common concept that centers throughout the entire journey. That is, they are battling or they are discovering new Pokemons, right? Okay. Then for the other traditional Japanese manga, you have the introduction of one single character. Most of them they have the introduction of one single character, or the cartoon franchise introduces a community of character, and they continue to stay the same throughout the years. So, like for example, you have the case of the Hello Kitty, right? So the Hello Kitty, do you have a Hello Kitty character? And this Hello Kitty character, they have a fixed community of people like Batsumaru and something like this. Then you have a very famous cartoon character from Japan as well. It's called Kirby. So Kirby is a story that introduces Kirby as the main character, and the characters within the storyline doesn't really change that much. So you have a fixed number of characters, even though they go about battling more people, and they go on to discover new villains. But these villains, as they become eliminated, they disappear from the storyline. So in this, they introduce new characters in the form of a villain that appears in a single episode or maybe two, after which they get eliminated and they disappear from the storyline. And then the attention goes back to Kirby being the superhero again. So you gotta be a fan of Kirby, all right? You got to like the way Kirby is being drawn. You got to like the color that Kirby is being drawn in. You got to like Kirby's communication style, his fighting style, and you got to be a fan of him, watching him defeating the villains. Then the attention goes a little bit to the villain, and once it becomes eliminated, the attention goes back to Kirby again. So everything has to be Kirby, Kirby, Kirby. Everything centers on a single character. But in the case of Pokemon, the trainer, together with his Pokemon, he goes on this journey of discovering new Pokemon. And at the same time, the developers, they have the option of turning the attention away from the original trainer and centering the storyline on another Pokemon. For example, they tried to they tried they tried to turn their attention to the first Pokemon that was ever birthed on Earth. All right. So this first Pokemon is like is like the god Pokemon, the best in ability, and he is considered like the father of all Pokemon. So originally the story wasn't about this Pokemon, but the developer they decided to turn their attention to this Pokemon and develop an entire story on this, giving it more flesh on top of the skeletons, giving it more detail so that readers and fans they can know more about the story of this particular Pokemon. And this concept, right, can be applied to the other Pokemons within the Pokemon universe as well. For example, you can turn to any other, in this case, the unicorn Pokemon, and then you can flesh out more story to it, giving it more detail so that the fans of that particular Pokemon will get to enjoy the story behind it. And they have the statistics to back it up. Because from the sales of the trading cards, from the sales of the toys, and from in-game purchases within the Pokemon games, in-game purchases is like, you play a certain Pokemon game, and then you start off with some standard characters like the dragon and so on. But they also introduce new characters into the game, which players cannot access, but which the players can only access if they paid money for it. So they must buy these characters in order to play them. And based on all these statistics, right, you have an understanding of whether which Pokemon is becoming more popular. And from there, right, you can decide whether or not to write more stories for that particular Pokemon in order to cater to the fans of that Pokemon. So the statistics is there to back it up. And it's very interesting because by having all this and they are constantly innovating new Pokemon characters, introducing new Pokemon characters into the system, and they're constantly innovating, inventing new platforms to draw the users in. They're never, how much they have evolved over the years. They have developed so many things. It's an entire ecosystem. And you can't say, yes, they do not put in as much investment into the hardware as compared to like NBA, whereby they have to build stadiums, they have to recruit the players at very high cost. But I argue that these Pokemon developers, they put in equally, if not more effort to developing new characters that is akin to the recruitment of the NBA basketball players. And they also have to look at the statistics, like which Pokemon is becoming more popular, which Pokemon is becoming less popular. And those that are less popular, you might have to somewhat reduce the exposure in this Pokemon universe, but not entirely, because it's already created. It has its own trading cards. So just let it be, okay? It has its own fan base. So in a way, these characters become the NPC, the less prominent characters of the universe. Then you have statistics that show that certain Pokemons are becoming more popular. And so invest in those characters. It allows you to leverage on that popularity. And I argue that the Pokemon developers, they invest equal, if not more effort than the NBA scouts, managers, and administrators. And it's very good. I like it very much because this business model, it allows you to, in a way, in the business talk, they say that, you've got to find the product market fit for your product. But in Pokemon, based on their universe, they are constantly creating new products, new Pokemon characters, and they're trying to determine whether this character is able to find the product market fit with their fans, and they can see this through their statistics. And if a single Pokemon does indeed find the product market fit, that means it gains interest within among its fans, then it makes business, it pays to make more business investment into those channels.
What you're saying is that Pokemon Universe Enterprise, they have found a very workable and winning model to which they can rely on, which they have already relied on for many years. But do you think that their storyline and can they continue to use this storyline in the future? Continue to use this storyline in the future, and how do you think that they should innovate? And what should business owners like us? How should we go about? What can we learn from this?
Pokemon does indeed has chanced upon a winning model that they have used for many years. And you can see in the way they draw their animation, it has remained the same throughout all these years. And the thing about this franchise, about any companies that has grown so large, is that they have relied on a single winning formula, the basis of their winning strategies for so many years. And sometimes it can be very difficult to make drastic changes to it, because in doing so, you may risk destroying the fundamentals of the business model. And in this case, it is the way they draw their animation, it is the way they carry out their theme song, it is the way they draw, they sew together all the different characters in their animation. And for this case, I would like to bring in the example of BMW. So, BMW cars, the owners, the people of BMW cars, they go about they go about innovating in a very systematic way. So what they do is that, BMW used to be a very lousy car brand in the past, all right? So nobody wants to drive BMW. And in lieu of BMW, right, people opt for car brands like Mercedes. They go for cars like Volvo. They go for cars like Saab. Then BMW changed the way they did things. They entirely changed the way they did things. And what BMW did was that they weren't on a winning formula. They were producing cars that were considered subpar to other car models. All right. And they decided to switch it up, change the way they build their cars. And how they change it is they decided to be innovators, they decided to be first movers. And what I mean is that instead of taking the designs of what others have done, they decide that they want to be the first in introducing new car models, new car features. And they go about doing this in a very systematic way. And how they do it is they associate themselves with first movers. Even though they may be losing some market share now, but they still associate themselves with first movers. And how does first movers behave is that they try to attract first movers as their customers. And first movers, they have a certain kind of behavior, personality, a certain way of doing things. Basically, at the most fundamental level, they are the first mover, all right? They tend to be the first one to spot trends. They tend to be the first one to act on those trends. They tend to be the first one to build for those trends. So basically, they are the first in everything. And what BMW does is that they try to cultivate a group of first mover consumers. It is a very, very difficult thing to do, but they've managed to do it for many years. And then they gather all these first movers who drives their BMW for a yearly focus group discussion. And sometimes it can be virtual, sometimes it can be face to face, but there are a lot of events for this kind of thing. And they have built throughout the years, they have built other channels to for first movers to contact them with their ideas, and they're very willing to act on this. So during all these focus group discussions, right, they introduce innovation at an incremental basis, at an incremental rate. So BMW doesn't have to change entirely their car design, but they base their innovation on the feedbacks of the BMW car owners, first-hand car owners, all right? So in a way that now going back to this Pokemon enterprise, right? They have already relied on this reliable and winning model for many years. And they too have cultivated many channels for getting feedbacks from their owners. And in a way, they too try to get the first mover into the game. They try to get their feedback as well. So, like what I mentioned earlier, they have all these statistics about which Pokemons are getting more popular. And they also launch incremental experimentation. They not incremental experimentation, but experimentation in general. So they have launched like different types of films that are based on different types of uh, quality. It may not be just hand-drawn animation, those kind of 2D animation. Some of them are in 3D form, but they do this kind of mini experimentation and they see how the fans take to it. And if this type of format goes well, then I foresee that maybe Pokemon will evolve from the current hand-drawn 2D animation type of format to perhaps virtual reality, 3D, or maybe even augmented reality. So I think there may be a chance, but at the moment, I can see that a lot of people are still very drawn to those kind of Japanese manga style kind of animation, 2D, very akin to what One Piece, Dragon Ball, and the rest are doing. So I think that Pokemon will remain very cautious in staying true to their original winning formula while progressively innovating along the way in order to adapt to the consumer's need. And this is something that I felt that there was a very famous cartoon series from United States. It's called the Ninja Turtles. And Ninja Turtles, it used to be so popular with everyone. And it managed to find a winning formula. But along the years, right, it changed dramatically and it totally lost its way. First, it started out as a 2D hand-drawn animation that is a little bit like Japanese manga, but it has the distinct American style. Then it decided to pivot to somewhat like a 3D kind of version, like 3D. You can see that it has become more blocky, but you can see that the audience interest in this Ninja Turtles has gone down. And in innovating, right, they are innovating their animation to suit the different kinds of audiences and trying to find trying to pick up the interest once again, which the Ninja Turtle franchise has not been able to achieve all these years, is that they had a winning model. And in order to innovate, they actually pivoted to another style of presentation, to which they have lost a lot of audiences. And from there, they did not revert to what they were doing previously, but instead they went on to pivot wildly into other presentation. And so it wasn't incremental, and you couldn't see how the audience reaction changed, and you couldn't go back. They just entirely lost it, and they're just wildly grasping at whatever presentation there is. But I can see that it is on a losing trend. So I won't think that Pokemon franchise, the enterprise, is going to adopt this model. I believe that they will follow what the Germans have done, that is to incrementally innovate and carefully studying what the audience want and see how their experimentation takes off with the audience. And if it really takes off, then perhaps they can incrementally go towards that direction. And if it doesn't, then they'll just drop the experimentation. So in this, right, I think that business owners should learn about. There's a lot of lessons that we can distill from the lessons that Pokemon has, the Pokemon strategy entails, is that once you have found, it's very difficult to find the product market fit. Okay, in order to find the product market fit, you have to experiment at a very fast rate, but systematically, so that you understand what's happening with your audience, what do they want, and you need to do it in a very scientific manner. So you are doing all this experimentation, all these business ideas, and you're trying to find a product market fit. And once you have chanced upon this product market fit, once you have chanced upon this winning formula, then you try to milk it as much as possible, because to a certain winning ideas, sometimes winning ideas, they do right on trends. And if a trend dies down, then that winning idea goes down, dive,
It dives together with the trend. But there are some trends that persist throughout the years. There will always be some needs, some human needs that will always persist throughout the years, regardless whether or not a certain trend takes off or dies, right? So the lessons that we have to learn is that we have to learn to identify the trends. We have to learn to identify the winning ideas, to milk it as much as possible. In milking it means that we are trying to value add to the society at large, providing value to the society. And then if the environment does change, we have to adapt accordingly. We have to innovate accordingly. But we can't behave like the Ninja Turtles franchise. We can't just innovate blindly, throw ourselves at whatever trend there might be. So it's got to be systematic, it's got to be scientific, and you must be able to back it up with statistics. You must be able to back it up with real feedbacks from the customer. Only then you are considered as really catering to the market. And this is really encapsulated really in detail in Six Sigma. And I'll say that the Six Sigma training really helps startup owners, startup CEOs, startup business owners to there's a lot of lessons that this group of people can learn from Six Sigma practices, because in Six Sigma, you learn to do experimentation in a scientific manner, capturing the statistics, and with the wide variety of experiment, you learn to pick the winning formula and move forward from there and innovate incrementally from there. All this is being taught in the Six Sigma modules. And for information, I'm actually a Six Sigma black belt, and I draw a lot of my experience, my scientific experience from that particular domain. So it really helps a lot, but sometimes you got to change it up a bit. You got to be more creative about it a bit. So, but Six Sigma overall, the principles, it helps you to think in a creative manner in a systematic fashion. So this is something to consider about. And I think that maybe the Pokemon franchise, they weren't launching based on the fundamentals of Six Sigma, but they are certainly behaving in the manner that is being taught by the principles in Six Sigma. So this is how I think about it at the moment.
We are running out of time, and I think that it was a very good discussion between the two of us. And I quite enjoyed the conversation because, first of all, the listeners, they manage the listeners, and all of us, we managed to learn certain concept. We know more in detail about Pokemon and how they use the storytelling model to introduce more characters, and these characters actually appeals to different types of audiences. Then we also learn how they innovate and how they innovate and how they attract customers through the various medium. So in this, I think the listeners have already learned a lot. Then we also had the added benefit of learning a little bit about how BMW innovate to making the market share. We also discuss a little bit about how Ninja Turtles started well, and later they become not so popular, and why they become not so popular. So I think we learned a lot. Thank you for the listeners for your time, and we have a good rest, and we hope to look forward. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Bye.
Tuition Near Me, your number one portal for everything that is related to education. See you at Tuition Near Me.